right in the middle of
Nice.
a sip. Cool. Okay, so let's open the here. Can you talk so I do my
Yeah, yeah. Hi,
Can you
Frank.
talk so I do
Sound
my
checking, sound check. Yeah, yeah. Hi, Frank.
Cool. Sounds
Everything
look
sounds good.
good. And I will mute my phone. Getting started. It's nice. We'll wait 2 minutes to people have the notification and we'll get started.
How's your day going so far, Frank?
Good. Good. Like now the sun is back. We were prepping earlier and it was dark. Seriously, it was getting dark and it was raining super strongly. Now it's sunshine. It looked wonderful, but wet. It's good because it was getting dry. We had apparently since the beginning of the month, I think, or maybe probably the summer. Apparently, 400 fires in the province of Quebec.
400?
Yeah, this is the double of like usual.
Wow.
So it's probably like summer because in a month it make no sense. Otherwise, like, yeah, yeah, a lot of fires because yeah, no rain, super hot, good mix for trouble. Okay, well, let's get started. I think. Are you ready on your side?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready when
Okay.
you are. Yeah, I was just kind of putting the word out, putting things on Twitter and different areas, let people know we're going live.
Okay, let's get
Let's
started.
do it.
So, welcome everybody to the stream. I'm Frank Boucher, I'm a cloud advocate, and today with me, Jason Hen, another cloud advocate, will talk with us about, well, what do you talk about us with today, Jason? Or like maybe you want to give a little bit more introduction for yourself, a little quick bio.
Sure, sure. Yeah. My name's Jason Hand, and I'm on the team here with Frank on the cloud advocacy team. And we've had the pleasure of working together on a lot of different projects, mostly related to Ignite the Tour, I think, in bulk as far as a lot of our stuff. But yeah, so here we are talking about cloud things. And one of the things I wanted to share today was some of the same stuff that I was talking about when we were on tour together. And that's using a service called Logic Apps
Mm-hmm.
to build really just kind of a proof of concept MVP type of incident management little system where we can yeah, begin to understand some of the basics around incident management, why people are prioritizing being able to respond to problems, and how how to start thinking through that stuff. So anyway, Logic Apps are super fun, serverless, like no code way of building stuff, and I've had a lot of fun building some really interesting projects. And yeah, I thought for this first stream that you and I were going to do here on the Microsoft Developer Channel here on Twitch, that we'd go through that stuff. Have you ever
Cool.
done anything with Logic Apps?
Yeah, I did play a little bit with Logic App. In fact, Logic App is one of the service I like. I think it's very convenient. So that's why I was very excited when you talk about that. I was like, yeah, sure. And we talked with Amy about Power Automate or
Yeah.
Power Automation or Power Automate. Anyway,
Oops, my camera went to sleep. Yeah, power. There's Power Automate, and
well,
then and maybe we should talk about that. Here's my camera back on. It likes to fall asleep if I don't touch it
yeah,
every once in a
you
while.
got a lazy camera. So yeah,
I
so
know.
last week we talked about that. She was using it in a different scope, and
Mm.
Logic App and Power Automate, they are close to each other. So should I make the difference, or you want to do it? Like I'm
Well,
open.
yeah. I mean, you hit it right on the head there. If you want to, yeah, share with me what Power Automate was, what you and Amy were using.
Yes.
I'd
So Power
definitely love to
Automate.
hear what your take is on that. How'd
Okay.
you use that?
So I will start, and feel free to jump. So that's my explanation. So there's Power Automate and there's Logic App. So Power Automate is it's included, it's free inside Office 365. So you don't need anything else to use it. You have it. It's ready there for a power user. It's very, very, very well integrated. The wizard things are amazing. Few clicks and you will get your, files connected to all the other things, SharePoint, OneDrive, and all those things. It's very, very powerful for power user. On the other side, you have Logic App, and in fact, Power Automate is built on top of Logic App. So I don't see a scenario where something couldn't be done in Logic App that is done in Power Apps. But Azure Logic App, like the name says, Azure, so it's in Azure. So to use that, you need an Azure subscription. It's very useful for integration scenario. There's integration account you could have. So it's going closer to BizTalk if you do that. So that like in the big integration scenario, it's still codeless, connecting APIs and a bunch of different services and things like that. So like they are very similar. They are in different ecosystems. So the target user is different. It's not the same guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, exactly. You hit it, perfectly. The Logic Apps and Power Automate. When you see what I'm going to work on today, if you were to go and you did have M365, like you mentioned, this is Automate's already like part of that, just as one of the other products in there. A lot of the visual interface is going to be very similar. So you might even be confused, like, oh, that looks like Power Automate. It's actually Logic App, and like you mentioned, what I'm doing is all in Azure, so that I can leverage a lot of different things. We're going to be using a storage account. We're going to be using some API connections into a number of things, Azure DevOps, table storage, Microsoft Teams. So, and not to say that you can't do a lot of that with Power Automate. It's just that, like you mentioned, I'm already in the Azure portal. That's just the ecosystem where I'm doing all this stuff. So you could probably do a lot of what I'm going to do today in Power Automate just as easily. In fact, that's kind of on my to-do list, is to go explore a little bit more with Power Automate and see what I can build. It looks really fun, really awesome. I know it's something we have been working more within our team, is to share more of the stuff with regards to Power Automate and the whole no code sort of approach. Which, by the way, I shouldn't say it's no code in sort of the idea that there is no code at all for you to see or touch or change. You still can, but so much of it lets you just drag and drop or use just the interface itself to build out a fully functional automation system. Yeah. So, but we can go into the code. In fact, I'll do that at some point when we go through things today.
Yeah.
But and then there's another one too.
It's more focused on the flow than on the code. If you think about Azure Function, like it's really a piece of code floating. Logic App is still serverless, but it's more on the flow kind of the focus, right? Yep.
And then there's another one out there too that I think a lot of people have maybe heard of and get confused when you start saying terms like Power Automate, because there's Power Apps also. And so Logic Apps, Power Automate, Power Apps, like it's easy to start getting terms crisscrossed. But Power Apps are something completely separate, not related to any of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. And those are really more for you to create your own little simple mobile apps or apps that you can use, in a browser too, I think. But that let you do some custom stuff that really has nothing to do with what we're doing today. So, but anyway, that's that's kind of the game plan, is to talk about Logic Apps, and like I mentioned, a few other tools that I think help round out the story of incident management and how we're setting up and starting to think about responding to problems.
Yeah, make our way efficient. So should we jump on your
Let's
desk?
do it. Let's go over to the portal on my desk. I think I'm sharing my screen with you, right?
Yeah. So look, my little animation here, and boom.
I love it. Feels so official. All right, so we're in here in the Azure portal. Is this a good size? Can you see this okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Great. Okay.
Like I'm old, so it's always a little bit tiny for me, but it's fine.
Well, what I'd like to do is just create a Logic app from scratch and kind of go through the whole process. I think we've got plenty of time to go through this, and if we have people joining us on chat, if you got questions, definitely throw them in there. Frank's going to keep an eye on chat. And there's no reason why we can't stop and talk about some of the stuff as we go along here. So, and same for you, Frank. If I just get going too fast, slow me down, ask some questions here. But to get started, yeah, something like that. So let's go to create a resource. And I'm just going to, I could browse through here for a Logic app. That's what we're going to create first, is a Logic app. But I always pretty much just come in here and start typing what I'm looking for and find Logic app here in the list.
I don't know for you, but well, like you just mentioned it, I think it's the easiest way because there's always new service, improvement. And if you get used to see something in the second position on your left,
totally,
it may not be there forever. It will move around.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for continuous improvement, and that goes for the design of the portal too. So if you can just provide me a search bar, I'll get what I need.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and hit create. And for anyone who's watching who's never been into the Azure portal, this is pretty much standard for any resource that you're going to create. It's going to ask you a few questions in terms of what subscription are you putting it into? Is there a resource group that you'd like to put it into? Do you want to create a new resource group? If not, name, all that kind of stuff. What region, where you want to put the resources, all that kind of stuff. But it's different for every resource. This is a very simple template where it's only got, looks like 4 or 5 different fields. But these will vary depending on the different types of things that you're going to be spinning up within Azure. I'm going to put this Logic app into a resource group that I already have that I've created previously, just called Tailwind Traders. Tailwind Traders is this fictional company that we reference in a lot of our demos to help put ourselves in the situation of a business and understand from their perspective what it is, what problem we're trying to solve and how we're solving that. So Tailwind Traders, we could, in this scenario, say hypothetically, they've realized that, with some of their new architecture, some of the new things that they've built, they're starting to have problems now, and maybe it's minor outages, incidents of that kind, and anyway, they don't have a good process in place to really respond to things. So that's sort of why we created this Tailwind Traders fake company, is just to, instead of telling you about products, like actually give you a scenario that most of us on the team have been through, and we can kind of coach you on that. So, and I know Frank, you and I have had a lot of questions about, or a lot of conversations about being on call and the whole drama around putting devs on call. And I would say you probably identify more as a pure developer, where I identify more on the operations side. And anyway, we've had some fun conversations about being on call.
I think like in every domain, naming is hard. So like giving yourself a title is kind of, it's still hard.
Yeah.
Like,
So I'm going to put this into the Tailwind Traders resource group, and I'll give it a name of, this is the name of the Logic app. I'll just say Incident. We'll just call it Incident Management Logic app. And as far as the region goes, where I'm going to put this, have you ever seen the speed test site, Frank, that shows you how fast or what the latency is between you and any of the data centers within Azure?
Nope.
So if you go in your browser, you just go to your favorite search site here, and you type in something like Azure speed test. It's right there at the top.
No, I think you will need to put that link also in the chat, Jason.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that. It'll be one of the first things that come up here. So Azure Speed Test, and then Azure Speed Test 2 is actually the one I want to show you first. Let me put this. Can I send this to you, Frank, and you can put it in chat? Or I guess I can put it in chat, don't I?
Yeah.
I have access to that. Am I logged in? Let's get logged in. Oh, no, I can't, because I'm on the other machine.
Oh, the chat is on another window.
Yeah, it's on my other computer. Let me just drop the chat in here. Yep, and then you can share it to the group. But you can see here, it's ranking based on latency all of the data centers across Azure. And so this has been real handy as we've been traveling around and trying to decide, when we're doing these demos, we always want to create resources closer to wherever we are, right? Like, especially when you're doing a live demo on stage, like latency can make a bad demo. That's for sure. Cool.
You made Amy happy in the chat.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, apparently she really needs that link in her life. It's part of time
cool.
Now.
Well, so this one's great. And then if you get to where, let me go to this other one, which this one's easier, Frank, if you want to add this one there. It's just azurespeed.com, www.azurespeed.com. And it will actually, you can choose different,
interesting.
Different data centers, and it'll give you some metrics down here on the latency in sort of a comparison between them. So this is kind of nice especially if you're doing things, sharing resources, globally. How long is it? What's latency like between here and China? Something you might want to figure out. Anyway, those are really cool, really handy tools.
Really cool.
And I think West US came up the fastest from my location here, just outside of Boulder. And so we'll go with West. And then for the purposes of this, I'm going to leave log analytics off. Just we don't need it, for this. But we could turn that on, and then log analytics would start capturing a lot of the activity, a lot of the things that are happening within our Logic app, and we'd have that available to us within log analytics, and we could run KQL queries on them, Kusto queries on them, to try to extract more information about all that. So some really neat things you can do with the logs once you turn that on. But for today, we're just going to leave that off. And I don't need to do any tags for this one either. So I'll just hit review and create.
Cool. As long as you don't forget to delete your stuff when you're done.
Right. Well, part of the reason I've choose to put all of this into that one resource group is, and this is my favorite thing about resource groups, is it's so easy to clean up when you're done, because I can just delete that resource group, and I don't know how many resources we'll end up having at the end of this, but they'll all be removed together. So let's just create, and you can see up here in the top right, it's going through and giving us a little status update. And this typically only takes a few seconds to complete. You can see there, it's already done. Yeah. We'll go to the resource. So you were saying, Frank, you've done some stuff with Logic Apps already. Give me an example of one, and how does it start? What's the first trigger that kicks these Logic apps, or kicks one of your Logic apps off?
In a lot of scenario I did, the trigger was a new file in a storage, OneDrive or Dropbox or whatever. So most of the time it was, I'm dropping a file and things happen. Got
it. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty, that's a great example of a simple thing that you can do. I'm guessing there's probably already a template in here that sets you up to start off with that kind of a trigger. But as you notice, I can scroll down and they have all kinds of templates ready for you to just choose from and get going. But you can also come up and just start with a blank Logic app, which generally is I think the way I like to start. But if I can find one in here that is, already kind of gets me going, that'll save you a little time.
It's a good way to experiment. When you're not sure, you could start with like a template, a recipe, and you just then fill the gap or whatever you want to call it, and continue. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they have ones like the one you were talking about here, when a new file is created in OneDrive, which I don't know if that was the exact one you used, but you can also say when a new file is created in blob storage or, wherever you want. They've got stuff for Twitter. All of the different tools within M365 are all in here. So there's a lot of good just things that you can start with and build some fun stuff. The one I'm going to start with today is this first one here, or the second one here, that says when an HTTP request is received. Okay. And the reason why I'm choosing this one is what I'm doing today is I'm trying to simulate what might happen if I received some kind of an alert from my monitoring system. So we're kind of skipping over the whole conversation of, well, what is it you're monitoring and what tool is it that you're using to monitor? I'm choosing to not go over that stuff. That's a completely different conversation for maybe the next stream. But what actually happens once I get the alert? And there's lots of different ways people are receiving alerts. They could be coming in over email, might be something that's going into Teams or your Slack or whatever you're using for chat. It might be an SMS, might be a text message. There's tools out there like PagerDuty, VictorOps, OpsGenie, and with even more coming that this is what they do as a service, is they help you respond and, actually remediate and fix the problem, and then also understand. It's not just about fixing it, but actually understanding what happened and how did we react or respond, is probably the better word, to the problem, and what can we learn from that. Because as you've probably come to realize, as most of us, things break when it comes to computers. Sometimes there's a bug in the code that might get into production, or who knows, maybe, users will come up with all kinds of interesting ways to abuse our software, and it just seems like common sense that things are going to break, and we might as well have something in place that says this is what happens when this breaks. And so we're kind of taking it from that point, is we know an alert has come in from somewhere. And what I'm going to do is an HTTP request, excuse me, so that we can receive that alert and then start processing the information and do something with it.
Okay.
So, and the data that's coming over, let me actually show you what that looks like. So I've already got the tab open up here. It's up in Docs, but there's this one, if you just search for, and I'll put a link here. I guess let me share this one with you too. I know we'll have some show links.
Yep.
But we might as well, for those who want to play along at home, put that in there for you. But what I'm doing is I went through the docs and I just wanted to find just a boilerplate alert. What would I expect to receive if I was using log analytics or something like that? So, and there's all these different examples of alerts formats and what they might look like. I think it was this one I took right here, actually, this sample value for monitoring service equals log analytics. So believe this is the example. I actually have it over here that I'm going to grab and copy that over and actually show it to you in a second when we're building out the Logic app. Yeah. But we're going to take this, and this would be, for example, the type of JSON payload that's going to come from our hypothetical monitoring system. So we're going to start off by receiving that data and then do something. So our first step is when an HTTP request is received, and you'll notice the first box here says URL will be generated after we save. What it's going to do is it's going to give me a public URL that I can then use to send my data to. And we'll use a separate program called Postman to make that happen. So in order to get my URL, I'll just hit save up here in the top left. And I don't know if it needs me to actually change anything yet. I think it does. So let me copy over the JSON example and let's drop that in there, and then it should let me save this. Okay, copy this here. Now, if you don't, it's asking me to put in the JSON schema, and the sample file that I'm going to send over is pretty big, and I certainly don't have all the fields, memorized. I wouldn't be able to just type in this schema here and feel confident about it. But what I can do is, since I have the whole file that's going to be coming in my clipboard, I'm just going to go into this link here that says use sample payload to generate the schema and paste that in. And then when I hit done, it'll actually come back and populate the schema itself. So it reads through that JSON file, figures out the schema, and then puts it in there for you. And then once you have that, I believe now we can hit save. And now I have my URL here. So this is going to be where we're going to send the JSON stuff.
And that little URL and tool inside is so wonderful, because when I start doing Logic app, we didn't have that. So we needed to go on another page, put the thing to get the schema, put it back. So now that it's all integrated, it's so cool.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, there's other fine tools out there that I used to use for this very same thing, but saves you a few seconds here. Just have it right in here. So, okay, so that's our first step. We've got the Logic app kicked off, but what's it gonna do next is what we got to figure out. So we know that in the JSON there's going to be all these fields, and the first thing that I would like to do is I want to create a place where we're going to track what's happening. So when an alert comes in, we almost need some sort of ticketing system or something that can help me manage each individual incident and let us have some place to store information on it, see who's working on it, what's the latest information, all that kind of stuff. And so after looking out at all of the different tools and toys that we have at our disposal, within Microsoft or within Azure, Azure DevOps is the one that caught my eye as being really great possible solution to help us track some of this stuff. And have you done much with Azure DevOps, Frank, or what's your experience with that?
Well, a little bit. These days I'm more on the GitHub side of thing, but I used it a lot before joining Microsoft. I was managing my project, having tasks a little bit over there, and also I did some CI/CD in there. I have a few videos showing that, but it's been a while, so
Yeah.
they change it a lot since then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of in the same boat. I definitely stick with GitHub when it comes to my repositories for everything. But Azure DevOps has some really cool stuff. I'm already in this Azure DevOps instance that I created just for this demo. And, it's got the overview page here, and you can create some custom summary and dashboards and add a wiki. But what we're going to use is this boards down here. And like you mentioned, you can do some CI/CD pipelines. It can serve as your repo if you'd like. It's even got things to help you create test plans and where you're going to store your artifacts and everything that gets built. But what we're going to use is boards. And so I'm going to click on boards.
You can also have all that public in read-only mode, right? Like the repo, I think, can be public. The boards, like there's a lot of stuff you could have public, I think.
I know for sure that per project, so in this example, this incident management one, I've got that set to private, but I think I can set that to public, and then you might be able to choose what's actually visible. I know you can also turn off some of these services if you're not using them. There's a lot of things you can do under the project settings.
Yeah.
So in boards, if I go to just the generic first page here, it automatically takes me into the work items. And the reason why I'm choosing Azure DevOps is because of this work items functionality. Because if you've ever used tools like Jira and Trello, even, like it serves as a good project management. Even GitHub projects can help you do this to a certain degree, but it helps you kind of keep your different projects and all the tasks that are involved and all that kind of stuff. You can track all that in very simple ways right out of the box. But you can also customize the work items and create your own custom work items. So we're going to be using, if I hit the drop down for creating a new work item, we're going to be using issues because this is just right out of the box. It's already there. If I wanted to, though, I could go into project settings and create a new custom work item and call it incident. So we could, if we wanted to, make this a lot more polished and that kind of thing. But I thought it might be fun to just go through this and just let's leave everything kind of stock, not customize it too much, and just see what we have, and then we can figure out where do we want to improve these things. But I'm going to be doing within the Logic app pretty much the same thing that I would do if I was to come in manually in here and say I'm going to create a new issue, and we'll say this is incident for Frank, just to have some text in here, and then I'll hit save. And if I go back to the previous screen, I can see that incident or see this issue in here. You can see that it's not been assigned to anybody. And if I go over into the boards view, this is the one I really like, and I'm going to leave it probably here for the rest of the demo because it shows us like in columns, like you might be used to if you're using some of those tools I was mentioning. Yeah, like a Kanban is we got to do, doing, and done. And so I can say I'm moving this incident from to do to doing, and then I'm done with it. And then later, if I wanted to, I could even delete it, right? And within each one, I could also manually just do the drop down. I can also go into each one, and let's say I need to assign this to myself, and I'm going to go ahead and change it to doing, and I add something in the description like So you kind of get the idea, right? Like you can come in here and add information. It's open to everybody.
It's a trace of your work. So, yep.
Exactly. And then we can always go back afterwards. And I'm a big fan of doing post-incident reviews where you understand in a more holistic way what was happening. In
a more as we got when everybody's calmed down. Now you could look at it.
Afterwards, everybody's had a chance to rest up. We got a clear head. We can remember what happened, and we want that. We want an account of what took place from everyone involved, so that we have a better, more clearer picture.
Yeah.
We don't want to rely just on logs and just what the system was telling us. Like there was people involved with this, and whatever they were thinking and doing, and the decisions that they were coming to, all of that is so relevant that we need to capture what we can, and then do those. Discuss that in a post-mortem, post-incident review, and figure out how we can then help really upskill and up knowledge the whole organization. Like for every incident, we should be able to walk away from it with maybe things that'll be action items that we have to actually do to improve the system. But in general, we're just hoping to really educate more of the engineering team about how the system really works, and also how does our team respond when something doesn't work. And that really has to do with understanding more from the perspective of the people, and not just looking at the raw data, and not looking for things like root cause analysis or root cause in general. If we understand some sort of causation, that's fine. If we determine that this thing happened and that caused this thing to happen, and we can unpack things, that's fine. But the point of those is really to make sure whatever happened last night, I had to fix it, but I sure would like it if everybody knows what happened and everybody knows how to fix it, so that the next time maybe we won't be down for 30 minutes. We'll be down for 5 minutes because, we're all just more prepared. Anyway, I digress. You got me talking about post-incident reviews, and I couldn't stop. So I'm going to move.
Next time when the problem arrives, we should just, put that on Cecile back. Pin it on Cecile's fault. Since, he says that he was saying in the chat that, if it's not on GitHub, it doesn't exist. So, it will be his fault.
Well, I've found myself saying that too. So, yeah, we'll have to think about that. But so anyway, you see where I'm going with this Kanban idea. And this is where we're going to track our incidents.
Okay, cool.
We're going to track it at a very basic level, and we could always customize it, add more, get really fancy, do some fun stuff. Let me go back to the Logic app and let's go to the next step. So we have our first one. We've received the alert. Now I want to create something within Azure DevOps. And luckily for us, within Logic Apps, when you choose the next action, it'll show you the screen that lets you browse through or search all of the different connectors. And connectors are the things you find that will actually connect out to other services or other resources within your system. So I can, as you can see here, I've recently used Microsoft Teams, Azure DevOps, data operation. My camera went to sleep again. Let me turn that back on. And
you need the Logic app to reactivate your camera.
I guess something. And Azure Table Storage. So these are the 4 recent ones, and these will be the same ones that we're going to look at today. But if I wanted to, I could search in here for something too. So let's say Azure DevOps is what I'm looking for. Maybe it didn't show up automatically in my list.
Well, there's so many connectors. Like I used to have a slide when I did a few presentation talking about Logic App, and there's a slide where we were happy to show when I start doing, I was MVP, so I was like, yeah, like this is all like those 50 connectors, but now they don't fit in a page, and like now you can create your own connector and put it in the Azure Marketplace also if you want. So like it's the growing speed of new connector is just like super fast. There's connector for everything.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's fun to just go through and browse and see all the different things and think to yourself, well, do I have a Basecamp account? What can I like do with that or build with that? So yeah, it's fun. It really is fun. And if you're familiar with using IFTTT, if this then that, it's very similar, and the same for Zapier.
I think something like that. Yep.
Yeah. So, which I've used for years on both of those to automate all kinds of stuff. That's been helpful. So anyway, we're going to do Azure DevOps. And what I need to do is we're going to create a new work item. So I'll choose this option here. And I'll need to then authenticate into my Azure DevOps account that we were just looking at. And once I've done that, now in this screen, how's the size on that? Is that a good size, you think, Frank?
Yeah.
I guess that's... this will be probably where there'll be some dynamic fields, and so I might be blocking some of the things that
you know
that
what? Let's try this artisanal view that I just created. So, side by side.
All right. So in organization name, when I hit the drop down here, I'll see all of the different orgs that I'm a member of. So I'll choose that, and then under project name, it's going to also show all the different projects. I only have that one that I labeled incident management. And then what kind of work item do I want to create? So by default, it has a bug in there. I don't want to create a bug automatically whenever I receive one of these alerts. What I actually want to create is an issue. And then for title, I'm thinking I would like to use the term incident, and then follow that up with something that's a little bit more unique to the problem. And so what I'd like to do is actually take something out of the data that I'm receiving out of that JSON file and put that in the title. So if you noticed over here on the right, I've got this little pop-up here that shows me all kinds of fields, and they're labeled underneath this when an HTTP request is received. What it's showing me, the search query and the search interval start time, UTC, all these fields are what were in that JSON file. And I'm going to just take this last one here of alert type and put that in there so we can see. And I'll tell you right now, the alert type, I think in the JSON file just says high number of failures. But we might change that later so we can see exactly how this is working. But for now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call the incident, as far as the title goes, just the incident, word incident, plus the alert name. All right? Yep. So I'm going to hit save. Now, I think we can probably test this out. Shouldn't be any reason why this wouldn't create a work.
Can I ask you a question before we test it out?
Definitely.
Because this is super cool, and I love the dynamic, the context value. This is just amazing. It's so great when you're creating a Logic app. But for the user, I'm just surprised that nobody raised the question in the chat. This is nice because, click, you go through. But how, it's saved, but can I have it as a file? Can I save it somewhere with my code and something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. As you mentioned, it's been saved, so I have it in here. And if I was to go back, let me show you one thing, and then I'll come in here and show you another thing. If I go back to just the overview page of my Logic app, I can actually, from here, I have a option to clone it. If you want to use the same Logic app in someplace else, you can do that. And you also have the option to export it out. So you can export this out, and it also shows you, well, I don't have anything actually set up here, but we could export that out.
Yeah, that's into right under our pictures. So let me.
Well, there wasn't anything there to really show anyway, so because I don't have that set up. So but anyway, so those are our two options from the overview field or overview screen. And if I go back into the design mode or edit view,
Yeah.
I'll show you from here. We have a couple other things. First of all, I can go into the code view from here and see what this entire Logic app looks like.
Yep.
There we
And
go.
it looked like a JSON file.
Looks like JSON.
Yeah.
And
it's your
it's
file.
exactly right. It's just JSON. Yep. And it's so this is exactly what we're creating, but represented in JSON. And then if I go back into designer view, we can, get back into that nice GUI. And then I can also see from like individual connectors, I can go into just their code. So I can peek at the code just for the create a work item step if I want to look at it on a little bit more granular level.
I want to be sure maybe you did the good connector or whatever, the good, like how it was done or something like that.
Yep. And I would also say that's a great way. There's been times where, for whatever reason, I couldn't quite put in what I needed to within the fields that they provided me. And it was easier to just go into the code and put in like a comma or, something to,
Yep.
I don't remember what I was trying to do, but I was trying to do something real simple. It should be simple, but I couldn't pull it off from the GUI. So I just said, I'm just going to go into the code and we'll do it there. And so, yeah, great question. But there's definitely a few different ways you can capture these Logic apps and then share them off. I've actually got this full Logic app or a version of it that we used on Ignite the Tour that is built using an ARM template. So I have an ARM template that spins up all kinds of resources, including the Logic app that has all of the steps already in there. Which we might try to, add to our show notes or something later. And that way people, if they'd like to, of course you can, play along with me and create it just like this. But if you just want to hit one button and then have all this and only make a few changes, I've got something to help you do that too.
And that's for sure.
Okay.
That I will do that, an ARM template to create stuff. I love ARM
Yeah.
templates.
They're simple, and I don't know, like I'm getting used to YAML. Like that was my main problem with ARM.
Well, that's good. And we have a question from Flipstart MH that is asking an off-topic question, but I don't think it's off-topic. So, in fact, it's a really great question. So the question is, how did you just blur the subscription ID automatically?
Yes. Good catch. Everybody's looking for my subscription IDs.
Well,
Yeah, so as you can see right here, subscription ID, it should be here, and I don't know if you can actually, is it look blurred or is it just white there? But
we see a little.
It's hidden out of the way. That is actually accomplished through this little plugin that we have built by one on our team. I think was it Brian that made this?
Clark.
Yeah, Brian Clark made this. It's just a little mask plugin that runs both in Chrome and Edge that helps hide those things. Yeah.
So I put it in the link. The best way to install that, it's like Jason mentioned, it's compatible with all the recent browser. I was looking modern browser. You from GitHub, you download the zip file and you follow the instruction. It should work like a charm, and it's really, really useful if you're showing your screen and doing demos like that. Like it will hide a lot of sensitive information. It's not magic. Sometimes it miss few places, but it's a good start.
Yeah, it's a great start. Thank you, Brian, for that tool. Exactly. Okay, so I think we can just try this out. Let's see what happens. So the way that we're going to trigger this is I've already mentioned it. I'm going to use this tool called Postman. So let me bring Postman over and let's talk about this for a second. Yep. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
So for anyone who's not familiar, which I imagine most people probably are, but for those few who maybe never heard of Postman, this is a tool that, among many things, is used, and probably the only thing I've ever used it for, is making post or get requests where you're sending something to an API backend or an API endpoint, and you need to process that. And in this case, we're going to be using JSON to do that. And all I'll need to do is use the URL that we have as our first step from the Logic app, and I'll put that in this step, in this field here. And then I'll need to go over into the body, and it's actually still in here from earlier when I was setting this up. This is the actual JSON file that's being sent to our endpoint, and it matches up with that same thing that we saw in the alert schema definitions in the docs. But if I scroll down to the very bottom, and this is the alert type, remember we said that's what we're going to put into the description, or sorry, into the title of our incident. So right now I've got in here, hello Frank, and what's today's date? Today's the 23rd.
Yep.
Let's just say 0623, just so we know that I put that in there and that changed it. Now I'm good to go on the body, although I do also need to make sure that in the headers, I've got content type set to application JSON. So if you were doing this from scratch, you'd want to make sure that you add that in there. I've already got that from when I was setting this up. So let me just grab the URL from our Logic app and put it in here.
You set up also that you were doing a post, not a get.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll show you that in a second too. So I'm going to copy my URL and go back to Postman.
While you're doing that, you don't need to use Postman. It's just a very good tool. There's other. I recently changed for Insomniac or Insomnia. I forgot the name already. See, I'm using. I didn't use it for Insomnia. So it's just a tool to make HTTP calls. And I'm not saying that Insomnia is better than Postman. It's just someone showed me that. I liked the colors, and I switched, and I liked it. So I'm staying there for a little while.
Yeah, there's a bunch of ways you can do this. So I've got that URL on my clipboard, and I'm just going to paste it in here. Okay. And now we will, actually, before I hit send, let me rearrange the screen here because this is always fun. I'm going to go back into Azure DevOps, and we should be seeing the boards screen. So if I was to create a new work item, it should show up in the to-do column here. So let's get back into Postman. And let me drag this over a little bit. Okay. And when we hit send, hopefully, if our Logic app is set up correctly, there we go. Boom. Almost instantly, we've got this new issue that just showed up in Azure DevOps. And if I come over here, I could say, okay, we'll move that to doing, and I can go into the details, and I can see it took that exact what I put in the Logic app, incident, dash, and then it took the alert type perfectly, right?
Yeah.
So our first step.
What a great title of incident. Hello, Frank. Hello, Frank fail.
Yeah. All right. So let's get rid of that one. Now let's go back to the Logic app and do the next step. So we know we're in good shape here. So far, we're creating a work item. Now, what would be the next thing we'd want to do you think?
Sorry, I was reading the chat. I missed your question.
So now that we have like a ticket, let's just call it for now. Like
yes.
We got this issue. It's being tracked now through some sort of ticketing thing. What would be the next or a logical thing that you would expect to happen next?
Oh, well, we want to provide more information in the ticket or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep, exactly. So what we could do is in the next step, what I'm going to do is, well, we had two options. We could either go and look up who's on call, and then update the ticket with that person, or we could create a place for those people to have a conversation about the ticket or about the issue.
Oh yeah.
And I've gone back and forth. I mean, in truth, this happens so kind of fast. It doesn't matter too much which one happens first. But I'm going to go ahead and just do a connector with Microsoft Teams, because I want to first and foremost, now that I've got a place where we're tracking this incident, I also want to create a place where we can have a conversation about it. The fact that this happened so quickly, like we're not really losing too much time by saying we're going to choose this over finding the person that should be responding. So let's do the next step here, that we want to create a channel within Microsoft Teams. And I would imagine most people on the stream are familiar with Teams. It's our collaboration tool. It's chat, it's video, it's phone, it's just where we kind of get a lot of stuff done. But this could be done in all kinds of chat programs. Maybe not necessarily within Logic App doing it this exact same way, but this is the chat tool that we're going to use. And what I'm going to do is, from within Create a Channel, I just need to choose the team. So I'm only a member of this one team that I just called ICM, which is just a shorthand for incident management. And then in the display name, this is what the channel, if you go into teams, what the channel name is going to be. So I need to decide what is that going to say? If I was to pop into Teams and I see a bunch of channels, how do I know what channel is the one for this incident? Yeah. Because what we want to encourage people to have, deep conversations about, what's happening, very verbose explanations of what they're seeing and doing, so that we can analyze that later. But we want to keep that away from all the other conversations. We don't want it to be in like a generic software engineering channel, or like, whatever channel that defaults to where everybody goes. We need to keep it out of that. It'll just be so much easier to understand the timeline of events later if we can keep the conversation isolated. So I'm gonna use incident again to signify what the name of this is, and then what I want to do is actually associate this to that issue that was just created in Azure DevOps. Now, I know what the name of that, or like the title is that we gave it, but what I really think is a better way to go about this is, let's just go grab the incident or the issue's ID, because that's always going to be unique. And we know that, incidents might come over with very similar payloads. In fact, I'm sending the same one in again and again and again.
Yep.
So in order for this to be unique, we need something like an ID that's going to be by default unique, right? So over here in the, we may have to change our camera angles here.
It.
Yeah, awesome. On top of it. Over here in the dynamic content, I'm going to use the search bar and type in ID, and that'll find all of the fields available to me that have ID in it. And I should also pause right here and explain that everything that's available to me in that dynamic field is there simply because of the steps that we've chosen. So because we have a work item that is a connector for Azure DevOps, I now have all kinds of fields from within Azure DevOps available to me to use both in inputting stuff in or querying things. I mean, it's kind of fascinating how many different fields that you have access to that are just part of Azure DevOps, or really any of the services that we're looking at, and how you can go in and work with those right from with this drop-down box, and just simply, I could clear this out and just scroll through and see all of the different fields that are available to me within Azure DevOps. And then with every new thing I add, like as soon as I finish this Teams channel, then suddenly now I have all the Teams fields available to me as well. So for the incident display name, or for this channel display name, I'm going to say incident, and then I want to use ID. So I'll come back up here, say ID, and I want the unique ID of the work item. And that's pretty much it. In terms of the other parameters, we don't have to put in a description or anything. So I'm going to hit save. And let's go back and do another test. So I'm switching back over here into Azure DevOps. Mm-hmm. And let me pull up Teams too, just so we can have that nearby. So here I am in Teams. Not much going on. Just got a general channel. And I'm going to put this... We'll just drag it here so we can still see this section here within Teams, but we can also see our new items. And then where did Postman go? Let's get it back. And I'm going to hit, before I do this, though, I'm going to change the alert type to something else. We'll say...
it's Cecile fault.
What is that?
It's Cecile fault.
Cecil's fault? Yeah. All right, so I just changed it to say, where'd you go? SLO breach, just something different. Okay, nice. So we got a different type of incident. Yeah, we can't pick on Cecil. All right, so let's send that in here, and we should see some activity. So
I'm just checking if he's still there,
Okay, so you've noticed we've got our thing in Azure DevOps up here. It says SLO breach, and down here we've got one hidden channel. And let me just pull this up so we can see it a little easier. And it says incident 11.
Ah, wonderful. So it's working.
So it's taking, if we switch over here, you can see this is 11 and 11. So that's how I'm keeping these things kind of in sync, you know. The ID of that channel is different than the ID of Azure DevOps, but at least we can make the language and the displays kind of match up, and it's easy to see, oh, okay. And then something I could do now is I could come into, now that we have a channel, I could actually come back into Azure DevOps and within the description put a link straight to that channel. So those who might make their way into the Azure DevOps ticket and aren't really sure where people are having a conversation about this, the link would be right there.
Yeah.
In fact, that's kind of what I want to do. I think next is let's go into let's just move this over.
You want to assign it also? You mentioned earlier.
So I will, but right now I can only assign it manually. So I'd have to come in here and just say that's assigned to me and hit save and close. What I want to do in one of the future steps of the Logic app is actually look up who's on call. So go into a database or some kind of data store, and say who's on call right now. Who should be the person that I reach out to? So yeah, we're going to get to that in a moment. Let's go back over to the Logic app, and I'll go ahead and let's do our next step of, let's say, let's go back into Azure DevOps, and let's say we want to look up, we're going to update a work item, because we do have information now. We can say the channel has been created. So I'll go through the same process here. Work item, I'm going to search for the ID just like I did earlier. That way it knows what work item to pull up and when we're going to modify. And then in the description, I'll say, and then we could put in simple HTML here and have that automatically and dynamically post in the correct link. So, but we'll just keep it like this so we can at least just see how it works when you're updating something. And again, we'll switch over to Postman, do a quick send. Teams. We've got our new channel now. Channel 12. And if I come back in here, the incident has a chat channel. So you can see how easy it is to update the description. And it does accept HTML. So we could have put in links, we could put in images, we can put in anything we want, all from that design view within the Logic app.
Cool.
All right. Now, the next thing I think we should do is actually go look up, see who's on call. But since we started this whole thing from scratch, we don't have anything that says who's on call. We need to actually create that thing.
Yeah, because we just don't want to assign to a default one. We want to see who's on call and then assign it to that person.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a million and one ways we could do this. With a database, we could do something really cool with Cosmos or SQL or MySQL or, pick your favorite database. But I decided to do this with just a simple table storage because of how simple it is and easy it is. So let's go back to, I'm going to go into just the resource group where this is. And there's a few things in here I will talk about, but not just yet. But there's a couple of API connections that have been added in here. If you remember, all we've created so far was a Logic app. But somehow we've got a couple of other stuff in here. I'll come back and explain what that is. But for now, I'm going to add, and let's just look up. Always figure, there it is, storage. We want a storage account because what we're going to use is a table. And storage accounts are nice because right out of the box you get several different things that are super useful across, I don't know, it seems like every project I use a storage account in some way. I'm either using Blob or I'm using a table. I haven't used anything with a queue yet. But it's pretty nice to very quickly have access to that kind of stuff. And of course, scale up, scale down as needed. So I'm going to put this into the same resource group, and a storage account name for this will be, let's call it on-call storage. I'll put it into, that one's already taken. How about on-call storage 2? That sounds good. I'm just going to go with all the default options here. I'm not even going to worry about the networking. Hit review and create, and then create. Adjust my camera before it falls back asleep. And this shouldn't take too long for it to spin up. This is that part where we need some background, cool music. We were talking about, Frank.
I found a solution.
Some disco or something?
No, I have some lo-fi music. I
Some
will be
lo-fi?
able to put in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get down with some lo-fi. All right, so my storage account's ready. As I already mentioned, you get containers, you get, which is where you put blobs, blob storage. You get file shares, tables, and queues, all right here in this one storage account. All we need is tables. So I'm going to go into tables. There isn't anything yet, of course.
Flipstar suggests a beatbox.
A beatbox?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can get some royalty-free beatbox, we'd do that.
Yeah, I don't see myself, around the mic.
Could you do that in like the tone of the Skype call audio, like earlier?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to create a new table here, and I'm going to call it on call. And then to populate this table, we could use something like, have you ever used Azure's, like, what's they call it? Is it Data Explorer, the actual native app? Or is that called Storage Explorer too? I can't remember now. But anyway,
Storage Explorer.
Well, I use the Storage Explorer within the portal, but I'm talking about the actual native storage app.
Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer.
They go by the same name?
Yep.
It's been helpful. I use that on my Mac quite a bit, but for demos, I always just stick to the Storage Explorer right here within the storage account. And so I'll come up to tables, and we should see our on-call table. And there's currently no data, of course. So I'm going to make this just a very simple data table with just 2 entries. For you and I, Frank, we'll just say I'm on call, but you're not, and that'll be like our on-call team, and our roster that says Jason's on call now, but Frank's not. And of course, there's we could make this a whole lot more complicated and fancy, but we're just going to keep it pretty simple
for demo purposes.
Yep. Let's do something like name.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think if I put music, Jason, I can try, but...
Oh, we don't have to today. I'm talking in the future.
Because on the sound side, let me try it. And we'll check with the chat what it goes, just for a few minutes. Because on the side point of view, your mic, I think, is going through the same channel. So, of course, I want you louder. And I don't have any fancy audio piping stuff.
Yeah.
So right now, there's a little bit of music. So what it looks like in the chat, do you hear the music? Do you still hear Jason?
Hello.
Can you hear the music, Jason, on your side? No, huh? Probably.
I don't think I do.
It's very low. I was worried.
That's all right. We don't have to worry about today.
Sounds good.
We're learning.
But do you still hear the music? It is super quiet. No music. Okay, let me pump it.
Turn it up.
I can hear it now. But low,
That's
background
right.
music.
I don't hear anything, but I'm good.
Okay.
So we got I got
So
one record in the table
It
here.
will be
I'm gonna put
nice
another
for
one.
all of us except you.
The second one here, I'm just going to put you in here.
Only on my stream I dance, not on the Microsoft channel. It's like people are having fun now.
I mean, if it keeps them entertained.
Yeah, apparently I can even go higher than that.
Hey, one thing I want to point out on this, where I'm creating these records, is for the on-call, everything's set to as a string, with the exception of the on-call field. I'm making that a Boolean, so we can just look it up whether you're on-call, yes, or true, I guess, or not on-call, so false.
Okay.
And this, I think, is all I really need for this really simple table. Okay. So let's go back to the Logic app and into the design mode. Okay, so it's time to go see who's on call and assign them to this ticket. So the next step we're going to do is we need to go into our Azure table storage and actually, is it get entities or get entity? I think it's get entities. Yeah, because we're going to get possibly, there could be more than one person on call. Yep. Again, there's lots of ways we could do this, but we're going to call this a connection on call. You have to give every connection to a storage account a name, and then tell it which storage account you're actually connecting to. I've only got 2 in here. And we'll make that connection.
That's another nice feature of Azure Logic App, where those connections now are set up in Azure. So the handshaking, like, hey, you know, I have the permission, okay, I let you in, are saved in Azure, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And once it's done, like the connection's there, they're all set. So I had to tell it which table I'm looking into, and then there's a few different parameter fields that we need to select here. We're going to use the filter query and the select query. And then in our filter query, this is sort of like our kind of like our lookup. Like what are we looking for? And we're going to look up if the on call is equal to true. So look through the table storage, and if the field on call is true, then what we want is to grab the email field. Okay, so we're selecting the email field if on call equals true. That's essentially what this whole step here is. So let's hit save. And before we test anything out, that's not really going to get us much. We need to do some more. So let's now, the next step, what we're essentially going to do is we've gone in and we've queried everything in table storage. Now for us, it's a pretty small table, so there's not much to query. It wouldn't be a very big file that comes over. But whatever does come over, we need to strip out a very specific field, and that's your email address, or it's that string, I should say, not field. So I'm going to have to do some data operations to parse through the JSON in order to get to that email address, because we need to use that to update our work item. So over here, I'm going to choose get entities result. Where it is? Get entities result list of entities. Mm-hmm. And then for the schema, this works just like our first step up here, where we have to tell it what's the JSON going to look like. What am I getting? It's not going to be able to sort through it if it doesn't know what the schema is. And I've already got the schema just to save us some time here. So let me copy this. I think I hear the music actually now. Just barely.
And I changed it because initially, for like the few seconds at the beginning, it was on the wrong channel. So we may have a few seconds where like we're asking the chat if the things is working muted when we upload.
Oh yeah.
But this music now, it's lo-fi and that's fine.
Cool. Okay, so I've put in the schema here, and again, all I'm doing is just telling this that when you go and you grab all of the data out of that table storage that matched the filter query, give me just the string for email, because I need that for the next step. Okay.
Yep.
So now our next step is to go back to DevOps, and we're going to update the work item again, and same rigmarole here. Work item is going to be the same ID from earlier, so we'll use our ID field from the dynamic ones. And now you can see there's a couple different. There's an ID field for teams. There's an ID field for our work item.
Yeah, now the context is getting filled up.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to go back into our original work item, and now we're going to update something. But it's not one of these fields. It's not the description, the title, or the project name. It's actually going to be the assigned to field. And the assigned to field isn't part of our options in this list either. So what we have to do is choose other fields and then manually type in assigned to. And then over here in our value, I'm going to use the email
that we just received the step before.
Exactly, that we just
cool.
extracted out of the step before. All right. Now I want to pause here. I'm going to hit save, and then let's talk about something. Because if you notice, now it has something new here. It has this box that says for each, and I didn't do that. And the reason, it's pretty slick, it's pretty awesome, is it detected that in order to do what I asked it to, it may need to iterate through the data. And so it creates this like for loop to be able to process this step. And so I didn't even think of that. It probably would have broke if I tried to do this in any other way, and it didn't automatically do that for me, assuming maybe there was more than one person who's on call at any given time. So anyway, now we've got this extra thing in here, but our update work item step hasn't changed. It's still the same. Okay, I just wanted to point that out, that if you saw the screen flash and wondered what happened there, it was done automatically.
It was magic.
All right.
Yeah, cool.
Now I think we can test it now. I believe we should be able to see some activity. So let's go back to Azure DevOps. I like to keep things clean.
So now we should ask the chat, what are the odds? Will it fail? Will it pass? We had a question also. I'm keeping it for later, Jason. I'm letting you progress in your demo, because we are at 112 now.
Yeah, okay.
But we have a question related to storage when we create the table.
Do you want to go over that now?
No,
or you want to save it
I would like to.
Great. Yeah, we're not too far along from the end of the demo here.
Closer, but I want to make sure we finish all the work you prepare for us.
Totally appreciate it. Okay, so here we are back in Azure DevOps. Let me get Teams staged so we can see our channel. Let me also get Postman up. And actually, let me just clean up some stuff here so it's a little easier to see. Delete this channel. Delete that channel. So the next one that should be coming up would be Incident 13 and Channel 13. And I'm going to change the alert payload, the alert type, to say assign to JSON, just so we can see that change in the title. Now I'll hit send. We've got our new incident there. It says assigned to JSON. And we now have our new channel down here in Teams 13. And if you noticed, if you were paying attention, this now up here has my name assigned to it. And I didn't do that. So if I go in, we can see now it has already assigned me to this incident. So that works. It was able to go in and see I was set to true, you were set to false. We could flip that around and it would assign you, although you're not a member of this Azure DevOps project, so that probably wouldn't work exactly right. But it would be as simple as that. If we added you in here, we could
like in real life, if I'm on duty, I will be part of that thing.
Right. So, okay. So that part of the Logic app, that part of the Logic app worked, right? This is fun doing this. I feel like I can do these things all day. So We've got, I mean, it's true. I'm always, at least once a week, I'm like tinkering with some new Logic app. Now I'm trying to find ways to make it work with Azure static web apps, which I think will be fun. So maybe that'll be the next thing we talk about when we do another stream.
I will be pleased to have you again. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And the
So,
chat was where, like, FYI, the chat was also with you, thinking that your test will work.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for the vote of confidence, everyone. I appreciate that. Something else, it caught my attention. I want to point out for anyone who's never done anything with Logic apps, there's this button up here that says Run. In some Logic apps, the way you've designed them, you can just hit Run and it'll trigger everything out. The way we set this up, that in order for it to actually work, we could hit Run and it would probably like try to do something with this first step, but it would fail because it doesn't have data to work with for the rest of them. So if you're confused why I don't just hit Run every time, my Logic app wouldn't work with that. But there are other ones that you could make where it'd be easy to just hit Run and see what happens. And then from there you would go back a screen, and down here you can see every single time that your Logic app has triggered, and then go into it and actually look at the details step by step of what happened. So you can see this was successful all the way down. And for each step, I can see the inputs, the raw inputs, as well as the raw outputs. So it's super simple to troubleshoot this, debug this if, something's not working quite right. Like I could have had a typo or something really easy in some of that stuff I was doing in table storage, and it would have broke the whole thing. But being able to come right into this screen and understand exactly what happened, it makes it easy to sort that out. Okay, let's get back to the design view here. And I've just got a couple more things I want to do. So we've assigned somebody to the ticket, to the issue, to the incident, whatever you want to call it. We've got our channel. Now I would like to put something in that channel, because if I go to the Teams channel right now, this incident 13, there's nothing in here. It's just empty. So that's not super helpful for me as a first responder. You just assigned me this incident. You told me where the conversation is. Of course, I understand I'm the first one here, but isn't there something you can tell me? Because so far I don't even know where to start. I don't have a link that takes me to a dashboard. I don't have anything that takes me to some sort of troubleshooting guide or whatever you use to help people understand what to do in those circumstances. We should try to pass that on. And even if that's just tell them what we know, what came in the payload, what came in the alert itself, that's perfectly fine. So let's do that. Let's go into our Logic app and add another step. And we're going to talk to Microsoft Teams again. And this time we're actually going to post a message into a channel.
People like what he said.
About what?
About putting stuff inside. Say amen, brother. It makes sense. Like if I'm on duty and I'm receiving a notification on my phone and it's 3 a.m., I want to know, should I get out of the bed or just no, the server will reboot and just like... Exactly.
How important is this? Now, I would argue if you're being paged, it's important. If you're being paged and it's not important, then we need to make some adjustments to your monitoring, because you shouldn't be paged. You shouldn't be getting alerts all the time. That's not going to work. That's definitely something that needs to be figured out amongst your team, and say, every alert should be actionable. If you're going to wake me up at 3 a.m., you expect me to get out of bed, you expect me to open my laptop, establish a VPN, SSHN, do all these things, it better be important. And it better be, not just important, but it better be something that I can do something about too. Yeah. You can tell me the whole, the data center's on fire. I can't do anything about that. So give me something I can do or should do.
Yeah, call the fireman instead of me.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to post a message as the Flowbot to a channel, and I need to tell it which team. So we'll go back into our incident team. And then on the channel, we don't really know, because that channel is going to be created on the fly. So I can't just come in here and put, some previous channel. What I have to do is go to custom value, and then just like before, we're going to use the ID. But this time it's the ID of Teams. So not the ID of the work item, the ID of the Teams channel.
Okay.
So we'll choose that. And then in our parameters field here, oops, if I can click on it, we'll go into the message. So we'll add a message field, and I can say is a new incident. And I can even put in HTML here if I want to break, right? And say this is what we know, and put in I don't know, just like one of the fields that came over in the original JSON.
Yeah, we could, like, we're keeping it simple here, but we could run a query against the what was the thing again that sent us the logic analysis or something like logger?
Log analytics?
Yeah, we could run a query and say return me the trace for the, like, past 30 seconds before the error or something like that, and then put that or format that in the message or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I tried to add a bunch of fields here, and I hope I didn't add too many and actually break it. I don't know if I've tried it with that many. I think usually I just add a couple. But let's try it out, and then because I think we got time to troubleshoot it and fix it if
we have
it's not working.
about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. So I'm going to save this, and what I expect to happen if you were watching through that is all the usual things that we've got already, like a new incident, new channels gets created, it assigns it to me. But now I want you to take this text and drop that into the Teams channel. And I'm taking over the name, severity, description, and resource ID from my original JSON and trying to add that into the text. I'll be honest, I've only tried this, I think, with just one field. And so who knows, it might not work, and we'll just have to redo it. But what I'm hoping to see is actually 3 different things from our original payload show up. So let's go back here and let's get Postman and send it. I'm gonna wait, just watch it, assign it to me. Okay, I'm assigned to it now. Let's go see what Teams looks like. We'll go back to Teams, incident 14, and here we go. In the body, we've got all that stuff. It's kind of ugly.
Stuff. Yeah, but you didn't spend time to format it. Just the point to show is you could put stuff in it.
Yep. So awesome. All right. So now, when I show up, I could come in here and say, "Got it, on it," and people, me as the first responder, I'm thankful. Like, whatever you can tell me, give me some links too. Like, anything that can help me make sense and add context of what's going on, that would be super helpful here in these texts or in these messages. But we got one more thing that we need to cover, because even though we have a way to track the incident, we have a place to have the conversation about the incident, we have a way to create a roster of rotations and of who's on call, and a way to notify them or a way of assigning them to that ticket, we haven't really notified them of the problem. I mean, they might get an alert from Azure DevOps, right? Yeah. If I get assigned to a ticket in Azure DevOps, I think I do get an email. But I will say, as far as on-call and incident management goes, when it comes to alerting, email is not the way to go.
You want something stronger.
I mean, how often do you check your email? I don't know about you, but like, email's probably the last place I see messages throughout my day. It's always, in usually in chat or some other direct message type of thing.
Are you trying to pass a message here, Jason? I will stop sending you email.
No, your emails are great. It's more of a stance that I think emails are for correspondence. They're not for urgency.
Yep.
Right. So it's to share, it's to tell me something, and I can read it on my own schedule. That is not the mindset of an incident manager or anybody who's managing an incident. This is urgent. We've got to get things restored now. So I need to rethink how I'm alerting myself whenever there's a problem. And the simplest thing I can do is actually just do a DM from within Teams, because DMs I've got set to alert me, right? So unless I've got my phone silenced or something. We have some more fun comments in chat.
Or just a Telegram message or similar.
Something like that. Carrier pigeon, like anything. Anything's better than email. Always.
just call the girlfriend and like you should be awake.
So let's do one more step. we go to back to our Logic app, and I want to add one more step within Teams.
In 5 minutes.
Yes. In 30 seconds.
Okay.
Also, I should point out, we at some point I need to come explore these shifts, the shift functionality within Teams, because that might be a good alternative to our on-call rotations in team storage or in table storage. I haven't really explored all that stuff. So, but what I do want to do is I need to post find it. There's so many options in here now. Post a.
I thought you were pro on searching.
Not when there's so many options in front of me. So post a message to Flowbot to a user, as Flowbot to a user. So what I'm going to do is make this very obvious. And I want that to go to the same email that we're using to assign this person to the ticket.
Excellent. Yep.
Right? All right, so let's hit save. And let's do this one more time. Back to Postman. We'll hit send. And let me get Teams up so we can see that happen. So there's incident 15 just showed up. It's been assigned to me. Take a look at 15. It does have the text in there. And so far I haven't got my DM though. I might have to take a look, see if anything broke or if it's just a little delayed. Let's go see what we can find out.
Are you in the good account?
Yeah, I think I'm in my Tailwind Traders account. So it should have, oh, there. No, that's from a previous one. That was when I was testing it out. So I knew it does work. Sometimes these are a little delayed too, and I get a little ahead of myself on troubleshooting. But let's come in here, and if we hit refresh here, okay, we can see at the bottom I do have a failed run. So the last time it went, it didn't like something. So I'm in that screen I was showing you earlier, where we're in the design view, or not the design view, but like the previous runs. And I can come down here, and it is in this last one. I'm wondering if it has something to do with this. Oh, yep. I think I ran in this previous. Some of these fields, it doesn't like characters, like random weird characters like that. Not that tilde is all that random, but let's just take that out and see what happens.
Okay.
I think most things will work, but see what that looks like. Postman. Okay, send. Got incident 16. It's been assigned to me. Let's pull up Teams. We got a new channel here. There's incident 16 channel. And will I get a DM? No. Must be more to do. Let's go back and look. Refresh again. Did it fail again? Yep. Specified team follow-up message request is missing or invalid. Well, we can try to simplify it a little bit more. Just wake up. Oh, you know, one thing I do need, this might be what the problem is actually. I need the actual message. That's what it was. So let's change this back to the way I had it, because I think, yeah, we can at least leave it like this. But in the message, we just have to make sure we have something in the body of the message itself.
Okay.
So
while you're finishing that little last touch, since we only have about 1 minute, just want to mention that tomorrow about the same time it will be Brian Clark and Cecile will be there to talk about Python, learning Python if I'm not mistaken. And Thursday Jason is taking my seat, and I think you are with Amy, right? Correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And do you know what you will be talking about?
I'm not totally sure. I'm not sure if it's going to be more about Power Automate. Was one of the things that she was doing with machine learning, right?
Okay, well,
so I know that was one of the options. I'm not sure if she's decided yet.
Oh.
But good news, the demo worked. If you look back here on Teams, I've got my chat message. I can come in here and see that. And need to get up and fix this problem immediately. So everything worked. And there's so many things that we could do to make this obviously a little bit, better, cleaner, customized.
I will need to cut it short, Jason. So going side by side. Thank you again for showing us all that demo. It was wonderful. Thank you to all of you who watch the show. If you have any question, I'm thinking about Ferran Meal 7. I'm assuming they can reach out to you, to Jason Hen on Twitter, asking their questions. And if you want to rewatch, the video will be available on Twitter and uploaded on YouTube later. So thank you again, Jason, and for everyone, bye-bye.
Thank you.